Why can't I hear
You
him?
have to go to there.
What? No, I don't know. You're not talking.
Are also farmers. They farmed 40 acres in Battleground. They had commercial pear, filbert, and holly orchards, and grew some hay for the farm animals. R.S. Durkee are also farmers. They farmed 40 acres in Battleground. They had commercial pear, filbert, and holly orchards, and grew some hay for the farm animals. R.S. Durkee also believed in getting You're never going to forget that. Maybe that's an advantage.
You're
Oh. All right. So he also believed in being involved in the community. He's credited in this book, Battleground in and around, of being one of a handful of people that brought electricity to Battleground in 1923. He's actually mentioned on 8 different pages in this history book. At one time, he was the manager of a canning co-op, and he went on to serve on 2 state boards, one as a trustee and one as a director, both canners, cooperatives, farmers, cooperatives. The Durkees had 2 girls, sisters, in 1912 and 1914. They also became teachers, and they earned their master's degree. One was the department head at Clark College. The other was a counselor at Hudson's Bay High School. They also lived lives of public service. They got very involved in needy causes. As a matter of fact, the Rhododendron Society was so grateful to Virginia, one of the sisters that they named a rhododendron after her. When Dorothy passed away, she wanted her memorial funds to go to the Battleground Library. The girls at ages 78 and 80, after loving their childhood and living a life of public service, decided to donate their homeland, now 35 out of the 40 acres, to Clark County for the specific purpose of allowing the public to have a place that would be saved and preserved to go on a nature walk, air out their minds, take a walk, because they knew as the city was developed that that would be very rare and you might have to travel some distance. Where their property, you could be shopping or working on Main Street and pop over for a lunch hour and just take your walk in a very natural, quiet surroundings. They submitted a drawing at the time, and that's in your packet, of how that would look based on their property. It was very clear. And when the last sister died in 2011, the property was deeded in 1992. So about 20 years later, exactly 20 years later, after the last sister died in 2011, the property was quitclaim deeded to Battleground. And as you said, that was 10 years ago. So on behalf of the family, and recognizing that this was a generous gift to benefit the public, I think this council has a leadership opportunity. I think you can be the council that makes a very sad story have a happy ending. You can be the council that has a plaque at this park that opened the park after 30 years. But in addition to that, you have another opportunity. Because my grandmother was born in Washougal, and I became interested in local history, I've paired up with Brad Richardson a lot, who's the director of the Clark County Historical Society and Museum, on collective projects. And anytime you have Brad interested in pairing up in a city, that's solid gold. He's everywhere. Matter of fact, now he's on a state board. He's received tons of awards this year. He's just makes history come alive. And so at no cost to the city, Brad and I are willing to add a historical element to this park, to this nature trail, to help spotlight the farming history that people don't want to lose, to help spotlight some of those early legacy families, maybe pull more out from the community, spotlight immigrant families, spotlight early businesses, the co-ops, the canning. And by doing that, Brad and I really believe that the citizens can feel deeper roots and greater civic pride. Visitors can come and get a lovely story about this community of Battleground that reflects a lot of the county's agricultural background. So that to me is a great opportunity. Colin is here also from Congresswoman Herrera's office. She saved the day after I tried to get my Social Security tied to my husband's for over a year. And she got involved in this project because it's similar. It's not being able to get something done. I've been working with the city now for almost 3 years, trying to just get the gate opened, a first step trail, parking lot, close the gate at night, with a plan to continue to develop the land, but at least allow the public to benefit. In your packet, you'll see some Facebook comments. After I printed that one page, I had 2 more pages today I could have printed, so the residents are engaged in this project, and I know that's important to you. So I'm going to let Brad share a few words with you, and Colin share a few words with you. Both gentlemen have walked the property with me independently, and then I hope we can answer your questions. Okay, Brad?
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I really appreciate it. My name is Brad Richardson. I'm the executive director at the Clark County Historical Museum. And we operate in the building in downtown Vancouver, but we are your cultural service organization for all of Clark County. We work actually very close with the La Center Museum, and also with the North Clark Museum. And so we have relationships across the community. And we have in the past been able to work with both the cities of Vancouver and Camas to install interpretive panels out in the city, because part of our belief as the historical museum is to bring the history to the people and to work with the stakeholders in our community to make sure that they have an opportunity to discuss what this story means to them. And so when Susan brought this property to my attention, we started discussing the family history and all the ties that battleground history have to this property. And what we see is a really excellent opportunity to engage families, to engage kids and people in a very open space where they're going to get to explore a piece of battleground history. This was a piece of, agricultural history for a battleground. And so we have the family's history with the agricultural tie, which we could highlight in a nice kind of wayfinding panel or wayside panel that you would see, outside across different streets of different places. And then from there, we can also talk about what's really important, which is our agricultural history. Battleground has really deep roots in dairy and, all of the agriculture that's come out of the area. And so continuing to have a piece of land that was connected again to agriculture and then tying that history back is really important. And then for this property too, being a city park, there is the opportunity to also then contextualize the history of the city of Battleground, which is incredibly fascinating. I'm sure you're all aware Battleground incorporated in 1951, which is the latest of all the Clark County cities, and it has a character of its own. And what we would like to do with this project is work with the family, work with folks that have the dairying history, people who are still around, who are those stakeholders, and work with the city to find out the kind of tenor and character of that culture and of those communities, and then communicate that through panels that families and kids and people in the community get to enjoy and engage with this wonderful open space. And so we're really excited. There's an opportunity through the Historic Promotions Grant. That is what we've traditionally worked through to do panels like this. So that would be grant funding that we, apply for year in, year out, and we have amazing success. And that granting agency loves the partnerships. And then also I'm, aside from being the executive director, I'm also the development officer for the organization. So I also know how to raise private money for projects like this too. And I'm willing to put our team and our work behind doing this, and really appreciate your time. And I'm excited to communicate this important story about the local area and Battleground. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Forgot, Colin will say a few words, but then also there are members here that wanted to say a few words. I just noticed as Brad was talking that this park meets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 8 guiding principles of Battleground. It meets livability, beautification, economic development, and tourism. Because it'll attract new people to your community as well as those from Main Street, manage growth by not having everything cover up open space. And then the last one is what really caught my eye, the strategic planning and partnerships, because the family is willing and Brad is interested in having that value. So Colin.
Hi, everybody. I'm Colin Swanson with Congresswoman Jamie Herrera-Butler out in our district office in Vancouver. They explained this project more eloquently than I could ever have, but I toured the property probably in August. It's a great opportunity for them. Just highly encourage you guys to continue to work with them on whether it's, working through all the processes and funding and whatnot. And we're always happy to be a resource. So that's what I got. But, again, continue to work with them. And if you have any questions, just direct them to us.
Thank you. This is my first time doing this. I don't know how to do this without a script. Richard Durkee wrote a letter to the editor to the Columbian. I read the letter and it was about his story. And so I sent him an email thanking him for the story. And then next thing I know, Susan's contacting me. But I'm sitting here listening to this stuff. I'm just a citizen. And I realize I am the unwitting benefactor of somebody who donated their farm, and 40 happens to be 40 acres in Vancouver. And the Parks Department has taken that over and doing what planning and stream restoration and habitat restoration. And I'm in the middle of Vancouver City, but I have 40 acres right behind me. So I guess my message is, you don't know what will happen if you take this vision and run with it 30 or 40 years from now. Who knows what kind of impact you'll have on the community, but if nothing's done, then there'll be no impact. Sir?
Hi, my name is Maureen Schutte, and I'm just a resident of the area. I'm not a native. Actually, I'm from Portland, lived here about 10 years. And what I recognize in this property is the opportunity to preserve flora, fauna of this area from when I was little and used to come up here. And believe me, that was many years ago. And as we get more development in here, these special places become more important. So I'd really like to see this wonderful opportunity put out. So school children who, you know, I'm lucky, I live out, so I have birds and everything right there. But as we grow more internally here in the city and the homes get smaller and the yards get smaller, children don't have the ability to do like we all did when we were little, just going outside and playing. So being able to go on a field trip or Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts, I think it's really invaluable. I'm excited for this to come to pass because my grandchildren come every summer. It'd be wonderful to go over. So thanks a lot. It's nice to see everyone.
Pleasure.
Ms. Tripp, is there anything else? We're going to do that right now.
Okay.
Mayor Johnson, I believe there are a few people on the Zoom call that wanted to talk, but I didn't know if you wanted to do that during the study session or wait till citizen communication during the meeting.
Is it about, if it's about this, we'll just do that
It's
now
about this.
while we're here.
Ms. Lindquist, would you like to speak this evening? So you can go ahead and unmute your microphone and the floor is yours.
I think you've got it.
Got it.
Oh, we finally got
Okay.
I'm Mrs. Lindquist. This is my daughter, Lila Smith.
Hi, I'm Lila Smith. We actually own the part of my mom originally had the whole 5 acres, which is out of the 45 or out of the 40. We had the corner of it,
Southeast.
the southeast corner, and we actually now own the original Durkee house, which it's now like 2.5 acres. So we're surrounded on both the west and the north side by the park property. And I just want to say how much in favor we are of this happening. I actually just retired in 20 from teaching 20 years in Battleground School District just down the street here at Toops Valley. And I've actually brought quite a number of school kids up to our property, and we've been out in the park and we've walked it. Back in the days when it was a field, it was just strictly a big hay field and it was mowed all the time. So we could actually get out there and walk. So it would be the thing that we would really like to see is to actually have some trails and to have a trail around the side so that it's a 1 mile path of just the field itself.
The perimeter.
The perimeter of it, not counting down in where the stream is and stuff and the big old growth timber. But it would be a mile path all the way around. And I think it'd be great to have it open. And like I say, we're right next door. So it's not anything that we're fighting at all. We want it there. So and I'd love to, I mean, for one, I think it would actually help the area in the fact that if some of it was kept up by even just a path around it, and maybe some of the berries and stuff gotten out, one of the things that would really help to avoid would be the fire hazard that it kind of grows up with the tall grass now, that ever since the city has owned it, they haven't taken care of it. The county did keep the pathway mowed around the edge, but nothing's happening now. So that is a little bit of a concern to us, is the fire hazard in the summertime when the grass gets 4 feet high. But we're really in favor of getting the park open, and I hope that they do that. Go ahead, Mom.
Well, I've walked it and walked down at the, through the old holly orchard and down to the creek and followed the creek all the way down to the road. And I know the big trees and the old swimming hole where Dorothy and Virginia used to swim when they were kids. I knew Dorothy and Virginia both. And I know this is their dream to have this happen for their dad. And that's why they needed it. And they were hoping it would get done before they died, but it didn't. I'm just hoping something gets done, at least a path before I kick the bucket. I'm almost 92.
So thank you. And like I say, we hope something happens.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And stay away from the bucket.
Is there anyone else on the Zoom call that was wanting to speak tonight? I don't
No, ma'am. No
see
one.
any. No.
Okey doke.
I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Okay, council, any questions from anyone for Ms. Tripp, Colin, Brad, anyone else? Before we get started, Ms. Walters, you got it. Okay, cool. We'll start with Mr. Bowman. Mr. Bowman, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Tripp, for coming in tonight, and for those that have attended and shared your passion about this area. Just to give a little bit of history. Sam, were you here in 2012?
Yep.
Mark, were you here in 2012? Aaron?
No.
Christine? Kay? No, at the end of it, right? Okay, most of this council, 3 of us were here in 2012. That was the year that me and Mr. Cortez and Mayor Johnson were elected. And so we have a little bit of history about this area and how it came to the city. And so I thought I would just fill council in on that real quick. The county had this, and the county planted trees and wanted to use it for a land mitigation bank to be able to do wetland mitigation. And Mark and Sam, that's not a real wet area up there on the hill, correct? And there is some wetlands up there, but the county was told, nice try. You can't use that as a wetland mitigation bank. The county had had it for 20 years, and they were hand watering those trees at the time that they had planted to try and make it a mitigation bank. So they came to the city and said, hey, we want out of this property. It's close to you guys. What do you think? At the time, we were looking for property for parks. 2012, we were kind of, I guess, still in the middle of the recession, I guess you could say. So it was deeded over to the city with the anticipation that we would eventually do some type of a park there. I think the biggest challenge that we've had up until, what was it, 2020, right? This is my first meeting back in this council chamber in 2 years. So in 2020, we passed a fire annexation that freed up a little bit of money for the city to start doing some infrastructure repairs. We annexed into Fire District 3. So we have not had the money, nor have we had the resources. And one of the easiest things for us to do, and a lot of people say, well, just go out and bond it. Bonding is the easy part. We've got a building sitting here, and I can see a wet spot right up there above by the sprinkler. we can pay for the building. The building's paid off. It's when we start having to repair it and we have to keep it up. And so the levies and things that go to help maintain those. Mr. Tripp, if you were a school teacher, you know, Mr. McCoy here comes from the school board. You know that just this last year was, we finally passed in how long, Mr. Troy, how long has it been for the levy? For school bond?
No, we have not passed a bond.
We've never passed a bond.
Well, the last bond was 20 years.
20 years ago. When we came on to council, I came on to council because of a bond that was ran on a similar property to yours, the Remy property. The Remy property is now a land mitigation bank. The Remys wanted that to be a park. They asked for it to be a park. It's just not too far from Mr. McCoy's house. The public, if you talk to the public still to this day, there's a lot of people that are mad that that was never made a park. The problem we had with that one was the Army Corps of Engineers and being wet. And so that was deeded over to the city to be made a park. And we still don't have a little trail along the side over by Walmart. That's about it. So the challenge is how do we fund this? I'm glad Mr. Swanson's here today. I've spent the better part of the last 10 years going back to DC and talking with our delegation in DC. And we have to go back there and fight for the things that we need in the city. And we have been back there fighting for parks and different things. YMCA is one that we've been fighting for. But there's so many things, Mr. Swanson knows there's so many things that you have to meet to be able to get those funds. It's really tough to do. And so it really comes down to the citizens. And we're in the process right now of doing a parks plan update. And the Durkee property, am I correct, Ms. Erdman, is included in that parks plan update?
That is correct. Yes.
And when we did the visioning process, that's one of the things that the citizens told us. They want more open space. They want more parks. They want places to recreate. The one thing that we didn't do that was bad from our standpoint, in my opinion, we didn't ask them how they want to pay for it. Because everybody wants, but nobody wants to pay. And so as we go through this parks plan update, there's many things we've sat down. All of us have had conversations with people that are passionate about a pool, people that are passionate about ball fields, people that are passionate about football, soccer, whatever it may be. And we've got to figure out how we start to pay for that and how we put that together, but not how we get it open. How do we maintain it? And how do we keep it there for the future so that other people can use it? I appreciate, your guys' passion about it. And it is something that we have looked at and we've talked about. It will come back to us in the parks plan update, I'm sure. And we have to figure out how much money we're willing to dedicate to those type of things. My biggest concern, just opening the gate, if you drive right over here behind Safeway, we have a lot of four-wheel drive vehicles out here. We have a lot of people that like to see mud on their four-wheel drive vehicles. And so anywhere they can pull over, they can get into dirt and mud that, they can get all over their truck, they'll do it. And if we just open up the gate up there without parking, without some type of a structure, I think that we'll have the people that live right in that corner complaining quickly about the mess that's being made and the things that are happening. So I think we have to do it right. I do appreciate you coming in, and I think it is something that is on our radar and we are looking at. It's just going to be, how do we fund this? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Ms. Walters, please.
So my question is, do you envision something along the lines of the Ridgefield Wildlife Refuge as far as the use for the day use, or how do you envision the use for this park, I guess, is what my question is.
That's a good question. We were hoping we could keep it simple, and it could be phase one in terms of costs. I'm totally aware of the concern of people driving over mud. I get that. And I realize public safety is always the #1 priority for cities, not just the destruction of land. So it would need to be planned. There would need to be something that you couldn't drive through and perhaps with some of the signage and the storyboards, there could be deterrents, just don't leave something that wide open. So I get that. But what I imagine is moms with small children, people that are shopping on Main Street, people that work on Main Street, they just know just down the road, they can just come and just go and just take a walk in nature. I think I grew up camping and hiking. The Durkee family did the same. And I just think it's really good for us. It's really good for us. And when I walk the Durkee property, which I've done now several times, it's whisper quiet. You get lost. You don't even know there's a city next door. And it's close. It's close. People could walk their dogs, I suppose, depending on what kind of path. I know someone in the city, might have been Todd, said we might not be able to do gravel. The wildlife refuge, and I've been to all of them. I have a dog, I walk everywhere, is gravel. That's pretty simple. WSU has dirt roads. They put some rubber under some of the muddy areas. So it is a high area. It actually even has a view of Mount Hood from a certain point. It's a nice piece of property. It served the family really well for many, many years, and also with the farming of it. So I think that it's something you don't have anywhere else in the city, and it's close. I think people can jog it, and it would be just nice, fresh air. You jog it. So I'm just envisioning initially, like the county had, a perimeter trail, not all the fancy stuff, because I understand cost. I was on a city council in California. I get it. But you have a phase plan to get the community excited. I know I'd be happy to champion a friends group. Brad has said the same. He's great at fundraising. Get the community bought into the next phase and the next phase. As far as maintenance, this property isn't going to be as expensive as properties that have. I mean, even if you put a picnic table out there, it could be one of those endurable chained in. It's not like you're going to have a lot of wood or structures. So the maintenance of the property, there'll be maybe you just mow the trail. I mean, those are decisions you'd have to grapple with, time, benefit. But I see it as something that could be done pretty simple and low cost as a phase one. The history boards would go in right away, so it would add terrific value, and that's no cost. I mean, that's a pretty good offer. I know when I was on City of La Mirada, we always loved using other people's money. And maybe there's grant funding that we haven't thought about for a historical park. Now it's not just an environmental park. Now you have a new historical park. But I'm committed to working on that. I'm doing a lot in Washougal at Parkersville. Brad does tons in every city. So you have a lot of resources here to meet you on this park. Sorry, long answer for short. Did I answer it?
You did. Thank you.
Mr. McCoy, sir.
Yeah, I was hoping to hear from Mr. Richardson on the grant opportunities and what kind of monies are available there and what kind of hoops and strings are attached.
Yeah, the primary grant that's used across Clark County is called the Historic Promotions Grant. It's administered through the Historic Preservation Commission. Usually it estimates anywhere from about $60,000 to $75,000 a year in grants, and it's granted across the county. Actually, many miles of the Chalachie Prairie Railroad have been reinstalled thanks to that. And one of the reasons, in addition to Susan's passion, is that we have at the county museum not brought a lot of grant projects up to Battleground. And so we would love to see, this county money that's coming to the community be used in Battleground to tell Battleground's story. And also, we do historic walking tours of downtown Battleground every single summer. We bring people out, we show them all of the historic buildings in that, Old Town main portion. And so bringing the grant funding would be out of here. It's a simple, straightforward reimbursement grant. So we apply for it. A nonprofit has to apply for it. So we usually can be the lead on that. And then in this case, if we were the lead nonprofit, we would apply for just the logistical funding, and then the museum would actually compensate with the staff time and talent to create that, because the grant structure in which you cannot pay staff from the nonprofit that does that. We could also partner with a nonprofit to also compensate our staff if we wanted to, but really it's not a concern for us in this project. We could definitely do this in kind for the city on our staff part, and then just pay for the simple logistics of it, which the kind of panels that we're thinking about are about $2 to $3 grand a piece to put in. So that fits well within what we've reasonably gotten. Usually we get about 12 to 15,000 per each grant request. The more partners, so if the city would sign on as a partner for the grant, that definitely does help our case. And the city of Vancouver and city of Camas have both signed on, and the Clark County has also signed on grants. So government administration being a part of the grants has been no issue in the past. And the grant cycle starts in January, closes out in November. So what we would do is start planning in January for implementation. The grant cycle does close out in September, so we are time's ticking. Because we'll have to be able to get that together in time to be able to apply for this year. If not, we'll be looking at 24 for being able to actually do the physical project.
To your knowledge, are there any like Cowlitz Nation type grants that would segue or potentially partner with this project?
What was that?
Cowlitz,
I know the Cowlitz does have an arts and heritage fund, and we actually did receive funding from them for a video at one point. So that is definitely something we could reach out to the nation and have the discussion if that was something they were interested in. So we work with the idea of layered interpretation. So like, when you're out looking at maybe an exhibit, do you want to read like 7,000 words on a whiteboard, right? No, you probably want to like see something that's kind of neat and concise. And so what we do is we try to capture on the main board the core and the heart and the soul of the story. So that's why those communications with stakeholders is so important. But we also want to create opportunities through like our website. We could also facilitate through the city's website to then unpack broader stories, to tell deeper stories and have kind of, multiple layers of interpretation. We're real strong believers in, timelines all the way to like large paragraph panels. And we are interpretive experts. Myself and my staff are all, we don't walk around flashing our degrees, but we're all public historians with master's degrees. So we know how it works. But I am also born and raised in Clark County. So I also do get the community, and I have, known a lot of people across the community for most of my life.
Come on, man, show those degrees.
Yeah,
Mr. Cortez.
It happens to peek behind me in the Zoom once in a while.
Mr. Cortez, before he sits down, would you do us a favor and send a couple of pictures of what you've done in Camas or in Vancouver, so that we have an idea of what this board would entail?
Absolutely. And the last point I'll just make is we're always very conscious about maintenance. So we can build out these boards so that they can either be replaceable, or there's also anti-graffiti options that we can provide and make sure that that happens into the grant. So it's not our first rodeo. We've had stuff tagged and destroyed before. So we are aware of how to manage that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
At low cost.
Mr. Cortez, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Susan, thank you very much for coming, and thank everybody else for coming on this and wonderful presentation. I know it sounds like a wonderful, wonderful project. And from a current school teacher to a former school teacher, I appreciate and applaud you. Here's the thing, and I'm going to be adding a lot of my comments to what Councilmember Bowman said. When we look at projects like this throughout the community, it's not just the initial capital outlay on constructing the project, regardless of how simple we think it may be, or how cost intensive or not cost intensive it may be, but it's more of the long-term capital outlay that we'll have to spend, whether it's making sure that there is right staffing to open and close the park and maintain the park, whether it's to having a solid plan and policy in place on how we deal with individuals that want to stay overnight at the park and longer. It's vandalism, it's all that kind of stuff. And so it's not something as simple as just throwing a bench and tables and mowing the grass a couple times. So it's definitely something that needs to be thoughtful, but it will always cost more than what we think it will cost. long-term. And that's with any project that is for the community benefit. Secondly, as you know, you're a former city council member, you said. I think one of the things I was a bit disappointed on how this was handled is that I think you could have probably come to us like you are tonight and approach us from a different standpoint. But instead, initially and early on, there was a lot of hostility and there was a lot of threats. And when that happens to elected officials, it really doesn't put us on a welcoming and opening front. And so, and I'm just speaking on behalf of myself. I think it could have been handled a little bit differently and a little bit with a little bit more perhaps humility when it comes to the approach. But that's in the past. I definitely wanted to let you know that. I think this will be good that we discuss this and have this included in our parks plan, and then come up with a reasonable and sound approach on how this gets constructed and how this gets funded and maintained long term. But at the end of the day, I think the citizens have to have a voice and input. Like Councilmember Bowman said, there was the Durkee property, or not the Durkee property, but the Remy property that was going to be turned into sports fields. And that went to a public vote and the public shot it down. And so I think at the very least, the public should have a big voice when it comes to how we develop this property, or if this property gets developed, not just the council. So thank you.
Please.
Let me apologize if anything I did or said was hostile. It's not really who I am. I did work with Sam for a few years and Aaron a couple of times. And I thought things were moving really well. And then it just seemed like everything stopped. And I would like to see this property opened when my cousins who are 80, 79, and 78 can cut the ribbon. It's just 10 years that it's been under your watch. I realize that, but it has been 30 years since the family's been waiting. And I felt that it was important to you as a council that your residents want this. So my engagement with the residents was to try to help and have the residents be aware of perhaps something they didn't know they had, the story. I know when we were on council, sometimes it was just really hard to get messaging out. People just, we put things on what we thought was great signage and they would say that we have a Durkee property. So I was just trying to get the message out so that the citizens could come and give you their opinions. But the negative is not against you as a council, it's against the 30 years of this park not being open after the gift was given with the intention, to benefit the public. That's the part that I would love to see again. You guys be the heroes of that story. You just got the tail end of it, but I would love to see you be the council that puts an end to that. So again, I apologize if anything I said to anybody in the staff. Sam shaking his head no. Hopefully Erin shaking her head no. I really would never intend to be hostile.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Seeing no one else. Ms. Tripp, thank you for coming. It was a pleasure to have you. I've been up there. I've looked around, kind of poked my nose around and looked. It is a very beautiful spot. It's a very beautiful spot. There's no doubt to that. And I believe you're correct in the thought of it has kind of a Zen feel to it, if you will. And I see.
Raise your hand. Oh.
I see that Zoom is a real pain in the tuchus. I see that the future for that property, I think it really does come into play here in Battleground. And I believe that not in the far future, I think we can come to a point where we can cut a ribbon and put some signs up, make sure people understand what it is. And I'm sure that we can somewhere during the coming years, figure out a proper maintenance schedule so that the folks who live next to it are not too concerned about catching fire, and we're not either. And so, again, I appreciate your coming. It's a very important piece of property to us. And I believe that we'll get this ball rolling. And with that, I'll ask one more time, anything else from anyone? Seeing no one, the time is 6:45. We'll adjourn for now and come back at 7 o'clock. Yeah. like Siri or Alexa or whatever. Yeah, I just back out and get out of the way. It is 7 o'clock on the 7th of February, and we'll call the meeting to order. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you would call the roll.
Councilmember Walters,
Here.
Councilmember Bowman,
Here.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Cortez,
Here.
Councilmember Davis,
Here.
Deputy Mayor DeRosa,
Here.
and Councilmember McCoy.
Here.
Looks like we're all here. Any reports from anyone? Council member reports? Yes,
To
sir.
hit the button. Oh.
That's okay.
I just wanted to thank the chief and thank the mayor for coming to the Make-A-Wish for David Boggs. I think he made that gentleman's day. I know it was short notice, and I know Councilmember Walters wanted to be there as well, but I got short notice as well, so I apologize for that. But on short notice, and I also wanted to thank the city staff for getting that certificate together for him. He clutched that like it was gold. You made the young man's day.
It was quite, he had a grip on it.
Yes.
He had a grip on it, and I had gotten a little note later that he had never had a bow tie before. I said, so there is good use for bow ties, bankers and politicians. Especially honest bankers and honest politicians. Let's put it that way. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, I went to a C-Tran meeting at the end of, the second Tuesday of last month. They just spent $700,000 buying some property and fixing it up. So, and the buses still run. I spent Friday to nothing to do on Friday, so I spent 7.5 hours riding buses. And so I rode 5 different lines and came away with a genuine appreciation for bus drivers and the thought that you shouldn't ride 8 hours on a bus because they don't put latrines in their transit centers. And so you've got to go find something and then come back. So, but I told Mr. Donahue that I would be back and I would ride every line between now and the middle of the summer. So we'll see how that works out for me.
Mr. Mayor, do you know what the oldest bus line is?
Is it Greyhound?
It's pretty easy.
Trailways, I would imagine it's number 7.
Yes.
Number 7, which is Battleground.
Yes.
So yeah, I rode number 7, number 78, number 80, number 25. No, I didn't take 37, 25 and Divine. And so if you get a chance, you should at least, it's a good way to see some other parts of the city without you having to drive to do it. Seeing nothing else, council, if I could get a motion to confirm the appointment of a Mrs. Smith to the Parks and Community Engagement Board. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Also, I would need a motion, folks, to confirm some appointments to the Salary Commission of Beverly Kelby, of Lee, gosh, I have a hard time, Evelina Kerlinko, and Amista Taylor.
Move to approve.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Ms. Erdman, we're moving on now, it looks like, to Mr. Herzog.
All right, I will turn it over to Mr. Hersig to introduce our new civil engineer.
Evening, everyone. I want to introduce Teague Sizemore to you. He's our new associate civil engineer. He was born and raised in South Orange County, California. He went to college at California State University, Long Beach. Previous jobs he's had as an after-school tutor of chess and science. He worked in geotechnical inspection field in Southern California. He worked as a career coach and English teacher in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Worked in the steel industry for Western United States, selling geotechnical products and bridge tensioning products. Sounds exciting. Got into public works with a temporary job for the San Jose Water District in the Bay Area. And then just before he came to Battleground, he worked for Island County up north. He has a fiance who lives in Mexico City, parents who live in San Clemente, a brother in Irvine, and another brother in India. When he's not working, he enjoys video games. He's currently learning and studying Spanish and Portuguese and the ukulele. He enjoys bicycling and looks forward to the trails in Oregon and our new shared use path on 503. Enjoys hiking, camping, and mountain road trips. He's a snow skier, surfer, and chess player, and he plans to do some indoor climbing in 2022.
Please, sir.
Thank you for letting me come to the team at City of Battleground. I really look forward to my years here.
Thank you. And I can imagine that family reunions for you are very expensive as people try to move, try to get somewhere. So it's a pleasure to have you. And we wish you long service here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that it's Professional Engineers Week. If we only had one. No, I'm sorry, that's a bad joke. Mr. Herzog, you and the folks down there, we do appreciate your work. Sam, do you have any engineers with you, Sam?
Nope.
Nope.
No, I do have one. Chris Drone. He's actually he's an engineer.
Is he really?
He's a certified PE in fire science.
Oh, wow. Well, it's a pleasure to have him as always, and it's a pleasure to have you and the folks that work with you, Mr. Herzog. Yeah. And Mr. McCoy will tell us that he's an engineer, but we'll just let that go for now. I don't think it counts for the railroad, Mr. McCoy. Moving on, Ms. Calkins, were there any citizens' communications? There were none. Are there any in the audience? Are there any on Zoom?
No one is raising any Zoom hands.
Have I met all the requirements there, I believe?
I think so.
Perfect. Moving on to the consent agenda. Does any council member believe that any item needs to be withdrawn?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Moving on to the business of, here we are. Resolution number 20-20 hotel, excuse me. The emergency declaration motion. Okay, Ms. Erdman, it's your turn again.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This is just solidifying the changes that we discussed at the last meeting. Basically brings back the in-person component to the council meetings, but gives us until, let me verify, till noon the day of to make the call if we need to cancel that component of it. But otherwise, we'll always have an in-person component.
And this go around, we had that pretty much down by Friday.
Yeah, we chatted Friday.
Mid-Friday.
Yep.
And so I think we can all live with that. Can we all live with that? I think we can.
So we'll just be looking for a motion to approve this as amended.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. We're moving on to the Hugo annexation. Ms. Erdman and Mr. Crummett. Now, Ms. Erdman, while he's getting that set up, are we going to see a Zoom screen of what he's showing them as well? Is that what we're
Yes,
going to
I'm
see?
pulling that up for you right now.
Okay. There it comes. That's the last, that's not the annexation one. That's the.
Oh, that's the next one.
That's
I
the one
fixed it
at the-
wrong. I just got to switch the screen.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
All right. It's all yours, Mr. Clement.
Okay, good evening, council. Before you is annexation, the Hugo annexation. I'll kind of just talk generally, particularly for some of the new council members to discuss how annexations work. There's several ways property can be annexed into a city under Washington state law, but the most common is what's referred to as the petition method. And that's property owner driven. Property owner or a collection of property owners will come to the city and say, hey, we want to be in the city of Battleground for various reasons. Oftentimes there might be a development interest. And so there's two parts to these petition annexations. The first part, which is what is here before you this evening, is the city council needs to accept the boundary that's proposed, or the city council can modify that boundary, or they can reject the boundary. So there's 3 parcels that are identified in the boundary. So they meet the criteria for moving forward with this, what's called notice of intent. So if the council accepts this boundary, then I as staff would go back to the applicant, say, essentially the council said, go ahead and move forward. They would come back for then a second round. We'd hold a formal public hearing. Neighbors could testify, et cetera. You could kind of dig more into the details. And at that point, the city council would make a final determination on the annexation. So before you use the 3 lots, it's located kind of in the northwest or northeast quadrant of the city, east of Parkway Avenue. There's 2 preliminary platted subdivisions to the north of these lots, Stonewood Haven 1 and 2. Also a subdivision to the south that's in process. Staff recommends approving the boundary as submitted. Any questions?
I'm sure there will be. So we'll start with Mr. Bowman. Sir, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sam, on this, so there's 3 parcels here. Parcel 1 is the petitioner at this time with an assessed value of $458. It meets the 10%. Parcel 2 and 3 then are roughly the other. I mean, we're looking at a little less than $458 per, right? So we got 3 that are coming in, and there'll be 100. Do we have support of all 3? Correct. Not just.
I don't know. I'm assuming they talked and would be in support when we get to that 60%. I reached out to the applicant and asked that question, but I haven't heard back from them.
Okay, because the reason I say that is there's one more lot to square that up. And we've done this before where we've sent petitioners back to ask that last lot to the east there, which these are weird lots. They're not, there's 5 acres total between 3 lots. 5.18 acres. That's what it says. It's comprised of 3 parcels of land totaling 5.18 acres.
Yeah, the one I'm looking at is 1.82 acres. I haven't tallied them all, but right, that sounds about right.
So
a little over 5 acres.
I mean, leave it to the county to, that's a little bit outside of even the 2.5 acres, right? So I mean, I would like them to at least go back and talk to that parcel to the east. This is just me, and see if we can bring that parcel in as well. We could bring it in whether they agree or not,
Right.
if they have the 66%, if all 3 of them are coming in. To square that up. because then that whole entire area minus the one down to the south there between Northeast 18th and is at least in, so that we can start trying to kind of get rid of these county islands that are inside our city. I know we've talked about this in the past that, our fire trucks show up. That's CCF and R's district. Our police show up. So it'd be nice if we can kind of start to square that up just a little bit and see if they would at least be willing to do that. But I'm just one of 7. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. McCoy, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I had the same question on squaring up the boundary. I'd be interested in hearing from that last parcel to see if they'd be interested. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Cortez, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
2 quick things. Number 1, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Hugo annexation notice of intent as presented.
Is there a second while we're there?
Second.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes,
And
sir.
then-
Continue on.
And then secondly, I agree, I'd like to see that last little parcel brought in to square it up. We've always talked about having these donuts in the city of, they're all surrounded by the city and little tiny, well, not donuts, but islands of the county. So it would be nice to have that last little parcel brought in. I support this, basically them exercising their right to bring the property in. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Ms. DeRozers.
Yeah, I'm curious, how come they didn't annex in with the rest of the group?
Oh, we don't. We'll go there in a moment. We're going to go there in a moment. Is that, you good?
Yeah,
I'm just Okay.
curious why.
Yeah, we'll go there in a moment. Mr. Bowman again. Before we go,
Yeah.
is there anyone else before we hit the second round? Seeing no one, please, sir.
This is just a clarification question, and maybe this is for Christine. So we make a motion, we accept the 10% as presented right now. They're going to come back to us with the 66% because they're already there, if the other 2 lots are already there. Can we at that time deny it then because they didn't go talk to the other people? Yes?
So my understanding of the annexation being presented tonight is that it's being presented under the direct petition method, which is 35A
Yeah.
14120. It's my understanding that this is the first time that this particular annexation has been brought before this legislative body, which means procedurally where we're at is the council setting a meeting with the initiating parties within 60 days of today's date to then make a determination on whether or not to accept, reject, or geographically modify the proposed annexation, and whether or not there's going to be any simultaneous zoning regulations to be included there. So tonight we're looking at did they satisfy meeting that 10%? If so, we then move forward with setting that.
And then at that time, we can set the boundaries. If we so choose, we could set the,
At that time,
yeah.
you accept, reject, or modify. So tonight, we're looking at, did they satisfy the underlying requirements for meeting the 10%? That's really what we're looking for.
So would we need, like, if we wanted them to ask that other lot, would we need a separate motion for them to do that before they come back to us? Because if this is, I'm just looking at it from my standpoint. If I'm presenting this, I know it's a done deal, right? Because I'm doing the 10% to meet the law. I already got the 66%. I got 100%, right? And so I think I'm going to come back in and this is going to be a done deal. And then suddenly council says, no, we'd like to modify that. We want you to go out and talk to these people now. Would that be something that we need a separate motion, or would you?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
What I would suggest council do if that is something that, thank you, of the majority of council is interested, is to make a motion to direct staff to contact the initiating parties to advise that a majority of council is interested in them taking that action and to bring back information.
So you couldn't take action tonight to require that. That would be geographically modifying before we
Yeah.
get to that. But you could certainly make a motion to direct staff to have a conversation.
Okay.
And
Thank
what
you.
the initiating parties do with that is ultimately their decision.
Thank you.
Okay, so there is a motion and a second on the floor to accept it as presented, to get the ball rolling, I guess would be the term. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to do what Christine said they should do. No, to go, to reach out to the petitioners and see if they will talk to the fourth lot there that is not included in this and see what their wishes are.
Second.
Thank you. So there's a first and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Are there? Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. And before we move on, for Mr. Rozier's question, 4 years ago, we, if you look down there at Northeast 18th Street and Parkway, that Northeast 132nd Avenue, if you look at that very corner lot, there are 3 mayors that live within 3 blocks of the county. If you look at that way, Mr. Bowman, myself, and Mr. Enziga live across the street from those people. That's kind of a sad tale. 4 years ago, we started on going to these people and just saying the jig is up. I'd like for us to think in the coming weeks to maybe come back to the folks there on Northeast 18th Street, Northeast 238th Way and Street, as well as the folks at 244th or Northwest 25th, so that we have a solid line of city running north-south. And then to the east of that, at the very top, that's where, if you go over just a tad, that's where Ms. Erdman and Mr. Cortez live, if I'm reading that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So I will, in the coming weeks, bring forth a motion that we, because the other way to annex is the city can go after these islands, in this case. We had quite a conversation the last time we did that, and we'll see if we get the conversation again. But if you'll think about that, perhaps we'll do that maybe in March.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
Please, sir.
Ms. Erdman, that parcel to the north of 244th is completely surrounded by city. So there's what, 7 lots in there? That parcel there, yes. What are our options there for a parcel that is completely surrounded by cities? We do a hostile takeover or whatever they call that, or
It's an island annexation. And so anything that's surrounded by 80% or more, you can take in as an island. So you would do the annexation, and then the neighborhood has the option to add that, file a referendum to put it on the next ballot if they so choose to do that.
okay. So in that case, and even in the case below where the mayor is talking about down there on Northeast 18th, done properly would be an island annexation
Yes,
also,
and-
because it's surrounded on 3 sides.
Yes, and I believe the last time we talked about this, we did the analysis on this whole section and it met the 80% to do an island annexation.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
because if you look at 238th Street, that last little city piece was the lady who brought herself in.
Yes.
Her name escapes me, but so I think that was the part that gave us the 80 that we needed.
Okay.
So sometime in March, Ms. Erdman and I will talk. We'll get on an agenda talking about island annexations. It makes little sense to me that the county residents pay for the sheriff, who's never coming, and pays for CCF&R, Clark County Fire and Rescue, who aren't coming. And they get the benefits of both the police department, the fire department, and quicker ambulance service than you get if they live further out in the county. So they get all the benefits of the city, but they haven't paid a dime for it. So we'll look for that in March. So I believe we've,
So before we conclude this item, we just need council to select the specific meeting that you guys would like this to come back to you on within 60 days. Mr. Crumit's looking for a date that would likely work best for that.
the second meeting in March.
March 21st.
That'll be grand.
Thank you.
Why don't we just, since we're talking annexation, Ms. Erdman, on the 21st of March, why don't we just talk about islands in the stream? How about
Okay.
that?
Will do.
Okey dokey. Moving on to the Walker Amira Song Northwest 15th Avenue Development Agreement presentation. Ms. Erdman, please.
Stop sharing here real fast.
And before you start, would you kind of give us an idea where that is?
Yes.
Daybreak Schools to the
So
left.
this is 20th over here,
Okay,
and this is on store.
okay.
Oh, wait.
Nope.
No,
No,
can't
no.
be.
Nope.
South of that is on store.
On store
This
right
is
down
on
there.
store.
Okay, so we're across from the school.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Trying to show it to where it's. That didn't help very much. All right. Well, we've been working with Premier Investment, Mr. Hewitt, to do a development agreement for the construction, or actually for the wetland mitigation and permitting for Northwest 15th Avenue. They had submitted an application to do the Amir Song subdivision and the Walker Field subdivision. Northwest 15th Avenue is on our TSP, and it was part of the requirement for construction as part of the development. There is some wetlands that sit on the very eastern border of this. So the city, in an effort to make sure that our streets, we get the through street, we are willing to do the permitting and mitigation for that as we have a little bit easier time. So we have been working back and forth with the development agreement. It is in your packet tonight. It's just the purpose of tonight is to kind of take a look at the DA, see if there's any questions that council has, and then we have set a public hearing for this to come back on February 22nd to where we can hear from the public. And then at that time, you'll have the option to make a motion to approve or deny. The development agreement essentially is pretty similar to one that we've done in the past for this type of development. It gives, once we approve this, the city will start the process of applying to the Corps for the wetland permit. Once we have that in hand, then the developer will be able to go out and start construction. So essentially that gives us 24 months to secure the wetland permit. And then after we have that permit secured, it gives them 24 months to complete construction. If we are unsuccessful in getting that permit within that time period, then the developer will dedicate the right of way, but will not complete the construction of the project. So with that, I will turn it over to you if you have any additional questions. And I believe Mr. Hewitt is here as well to help us answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mr. Bowman, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Erdman, I don't know if you can answer this or if this is for Mr. Herzog. Can we get a permit in 24 months?
Yes, we believe we can. We've been able to do that in the past.
Yeah, so the most recent examples I have is the 503 pathway took about 3 months to get, and 503, 502 actually took 2 months.
And the 503, 502 was done
2 months.
when though? Like
It was last year.
last year?
Yeah.
So pre-COVID?
It was during COVID.
Well, before everyone took time off?
Yeah.
So before we have COVID and no one can get stuff done?
They've actually improved their timeline significantly.
Okay.
Yeah, I was shocked, to be frank.
Okay. No, that's all I wanted to know is if you think we can get the permit in 2 years.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Seeing no one else, let me ask just some quick questions here. Get rid of that. So I know you can't see it, but the lavender line is the street.
Yes.
And then the little box is the part that we're getting the permit for. The little green box there amongst the lavender line. The wet line, wetland extents.
Yes, I can't see it. I can only see it up there, so.
Oh, okay. So that's what the permit is for. And then what's the little yellow block? That's no wetlands.
So if you see, this is the Amir Song phase. This is 15th coming through there that has wetlands through here. This is the Walker phase and this small section of 15th, which there are no wetlands in that area. So this would be part of the Walker construction. And then this is the future expansion once these properties start to develop.
Okay, so there is no yellow road there currently.
Correct.
So the road would come from the south and end at the red line.
Yes, and right here.
Right there.
Okay, so it would go a little bit further into the Walker property.
Yeah.
Okay, just trying to get this straight in my mind. Does anyone have any other questions on what's going? Yes, ma'am.
Is there going to be any other access points to the development, like 20th or?
Yes, there are other access points.
Okay.
I don't have the plans pulled up, but
239 will get extended through. So
Okay.
essentially where the red and green light, that's
Yeah.
239 gets extended across.
Oh, okay.
And then there's connections into the other streets with the subdivision to the south.
Okay.
So, okay, so there'll be 239th, 20, maybe one on 20th or just 239th, and then the ones to the south.
I don't remember if there's a second one on 20th, but yeah, 15th and then, or 239th and then to the ones to the south.
It's just 239.
Okay. Anything else? Okey-doke. Well, I think we understand that. So, so is today when the 2 years starts?
once this is approved, so we'll have the public hearing on the 22nd and then you have the choice to approve it that evening.
Okey-doke. Thank you.
All right.
Moving on to the street preservation presentation, Ms. Erdman and Mr. Hersey.
I love not being able to see this.
It used to be so easy just to broadcast it in 4 walls. Now to broadcast it across the globe is somewhat harder.
Okay.
There we are.
Good evening, everyone. Here to present the 2023 Street Preservation Program. I'll start by going over what we completed last year, what we plan on looking at this year, also next year, and then procurement and questions. For our 2021 work, we did mill and fill as kind of our most of the work we did. We focused on arterials and collectors. We did Eaton between Parkway and Grace, and then 29th Avenue and the 2 cul-de-sacs off of that. We also focused on some residential streets. There was 6th Street and Clark Avenue over by Rasmussen and Grace. Over on the northeast side, there was a couple streets there, and then up in the northwest side, north of Onsdorf and west of Parkway, a cul-de-sac there. In summary, for 2021, we did long line striping and markings. The county, again, last year did not do striping for the city, so we had to hire that out, and that ended up being about $25,000. That's approximately 10 grand more than the county would charge us, but they did not have the staff to do it last year. We'll ask them again this year if they are going to do it. I have no idea what their answer is going to be. I'm guessing no, just based on kind of what's going on over there, but we have the budget for private if we have to.
The definition of long line is?
It's all the center line, the edge pavement. So anything that's not the arrows or the crosswalks, those sorts of things. We did ADA ramps. Those were mostly on the areas that we did mill and fill. So there's a requirement by ADA law that anytime you do mill and fill, you have to replace the ADA ramps if they're not to current standard. Of the 125 we did, 100 was funded by the Complete Streets grant that we got. Then we did the mill and fill, which I just talked about, and then we did about 85,000 of various pavement and pothole repairs. Big one we did was the intersection of Grace and Commerce. Altogether, it was about 810,000. We were slightly under budget, which is not a bad thing because there's always the option to carry that over to future years. For 2022, again, we're looking at some mill and fill arterials and collectors, looking at West Main Street from 503 to Parkway. With our construction that's going to occur at 503, 502, it'd be a good time to just get this whole section done. Starting to be concerned by some of the potholes that I see there, so I want to get in and get that done. There's also a section of East Main Street from 16th Avenue to East City Limits. That will also be a mill and fill.
Would you go back? The West Main Street, is that a night job or is that going to be are all of these going to be day jobs or?
They're typically day jobs. With the amount of traffic, that will be an option we'll discuss with the contractor. The fact that we're in kind of a commercial area does lend itself to doing it at night because we're not disturbing anyone who's trying to sleep. So that would probably be the most likely. Then there's a couple local streets over on Northwest 7th Street, just off of Parkway, and then 13th Avenue over by Fred Meyer's. That'll tie in good. We've got the First Street project that we're working on that will go out to bid hopefully shortly. So that road will tie into that project and we should have a nice new area over there. We've also got some Cape Seal and Slurry Seal. Just a reminder, Cape Seal is where you put a chip seal down first and then cover it with a Slurry Seal. Usually you do that on a road that hasn't fully broken down yet, but is in a little bit worse shape than a Slurry Seal won't handle. So it's kind of a little bit higher treatment. So over in the southeast side of town near Rasmus and Grace, there's a couple subdivisions both on the west side and east side of Grace. The darker purple is the Slurry and the lighter purple is the Cape Seal, and that ties into some of the mill and fill that we did this last year. Also in southeast, closer to Parkway, we have subdivision over there that's getting a slurry, and then Grace Commons, which is closer to Grace Avenue. Northeast side of town, up by Grace, we have First Street, which is going to get a slurry seal, and then 8th Avenue and 10th Street, which is getting a mix of Cape and slurry.
Back if you would. First Street, of course, the street out front runs from Grace
to 3rd. So where the senior center, the road by the senior center.
Oh, it's northeast. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm on the other side of the street. Okay, thank you.
Also in the northeast, we have Parkway Terrace and then a couple other subdivisions. And again, we're tying in near where we did the mill and fill on the southern subdivision. We also have Wooden View, which is over in the Crystal Springs area, which will get a slurry seal. So summary for 2022, got the long line striping. I've also got budget for markings. There's some that need to be replaced, kind of various places in the city. I've got 150 for ADA ramps. So these will be along Main Street where we're doing the mill and fill. The added bonus of this is we also knock off some of the projects on our ADA transition plan. So not only are we doing the road stuff and we have to do this, but we get, you know, it looks good to do it with that. So we're kind of killing two birds with one stone. Pavement pothole repairs, we've got 150 for that. Again, that will be various places in the city. Once the winter's kind of up and we see the damage that's been done, we'll figure out the best place to spend that. For mill and fill, we've got 470 and then 115 for slurry and 175 for Cape. And that comes in at a program total of about 1.1 million. For 2023 work and why this is important, this is what operations will focus on for crack sealing over the year. So we try to plan a little bit ahead. I don't got the full program worked out, but this should be most of the local streets we're going to try to do. We have an area in Southwest, so we've got Hidden Meadows and then the area over off of Parkway and Rasmussen, kind of the north side. That'll be a mix of Cape and Slurry seal. Also in Northwest, so the Country Terrace and Mill Creek subdivisions. Mill Creek is where we're just about to do the traffic calming project. So that will be in place this year, and then we'll be able to do the road work next year. Then we have the large area in Northwest, so essentially everything north of Onsdorf between Parkway and 503, and then a small subdivision just Onsdorf and 20th. And then Northwest, we have the first phase of Lone Oak, which will tie into some of the previous work that we've done in Parkview Trails. And then the next section of East Main Street between 16th Avenue and Fairgrounds, and that requires either a chip or Cape seal. So, and as we get closer to that point, we'll figure out which treatment works best, but we'll at least get it crack sealed so that we're prepared for it. In terms of procurement, just a reminder, we have interlocals with Vancouver and Clark County. For us bidding, we'll do the mill and fill, pavement, pothole repairs, the striping and markings. And then we'll investigate the slurry and Cape seal with the Vancouver and county contracts. I'm not sure where they sit right now, so we'll have to figure out if they'll be usable this year. But if they are, we will go with them because we should get a little bit better price. And then 2023 will be pretty similar contract structure wise. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cortez, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Nothing huge other than first, thank you very much, Mark and Aaron, for really being on top of this. I know in many years past, this is something that is, councils wanted us to, or councils wanted to really tackle this early on in the year in terms of what our road maintenance is going to be. And we're still in, well, we're just starting in February, and you have a pretty detailed plan, so I appreciate that. Kind of a little tongue in cheek on the West Main Street mill and fill. I'm assuming we're going to have signage out there. Hopefully we can have the mayor's phone number on there for the signage.
Feel free to call.
He's gonna have to worry about the intersection project, so I won't do that to him.
I'm just joking. No, but in all seriousness, I assume we are going to do a pretty big public outreach to make them aware that, hey, this is coming. I mean, something more significant than just putting it on the website.
Yeah, we've been working with, or we will be working with WashDOT. So because it also affects their intersection with that project, they want to be involved in the outreach. And so once we get ready to go to bid with that, we'll be sure we're locked and step in with them and have for both our, the intersection project and the overlay or the mill and fill project.
Okay, good. That's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you, sir. Mr. Bowman, sir.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, the only question I have, Mark, is we got some grant funding for ADA this last year. Do you think we'll get any grant funding next year for ADA?
I don't see any for this coming year. Complete Street, as far as I know, has been refunded. There was a little bit of a pause on it because of the concern with the pandemic and having appropriate funding. So they put a pause on it. But so far that program has come back. So we'll apply for Complete Streets again. And try to get another grant for that. So it won't be available for this year, but I'm hoping next year or two we can have a good shot at it again.
Okay, because yeah, that I think you guys did a good job with that. And anytime we can, when we're doing that stuff, we can get a little bit of money back. But I do want to kind of piggyback on Mayor Cortez, what he said. And it's nice to see, I think back 4 or 5 years ago when we had the TBD and we were talking about the 5 streets we were going to be able to do something with. It's nice to see these quadrants and see big areas that we're working in and trying to repair this stuff. So it's the promise that we made, and it's nice to see that you guys are on top of it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McCoy, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just more of a longer process question. If we say Mr. Bowman were to write a check, how many years of this do you see in the future as far as projects? So if Mr. Bowman could just, or Councilmember Bowman could just write a check and get it done next year.
So every 3 years, we update our pavement preservation program. And so we'll go through and we have a company that rates all the roads and they print out a report that tells us what projects we should do, that sort of thing. So they actually come up with different scenarios that give some of that data. So to make the scoring system that we use is called PCI, and it's like a visual inspection of it. So the score we're at currently is about a 70, with 100 being the best and 0 being, essentially gravel. To maintain that number, we have to spend 1.1 million a year.
For
If
how
we
long?
want to increase the PCI 5 points, we would have to spend 1.8 million per year. And that doesn't include deferred maintenance. So there's some roads that are just so far gone, there's nothing we can do but reconstruct them. And that's called the unconstrained. If we would need to spend 23.25 million dollars to take care of all of that. So.
Thank you. That's what I was
Yeah.
looking for.
That's not a big check, is it, Mr. Bowman?
Petty cash.
Yeah, he'll find that.
I owe you, you're gonna want to keep that.
He'll find that in the couch cushions, I'm sure. Mr. Herzig, since we're talking about roads right quick and you're talking about the intersection, can you give us some timelines on what you hope to happen at the intersection? And as well, the walking path, will it go back out to bid this year?
Yeah, so the plan for the walking path is to bid it with the intersection project, try to get a contractor that will do both projects. Then a lot of times when you do that, there's some economies of scale, so you get a lower price. The path is ready to go. It's purely waiting on the intersection project. We had a meeting with Safeway this morning. That's the last property that we need to acquire in order to move forward with the project. In my opinion, it went well, and the obligation agreement that you guys approved tonight seems to be the last step. So I'm hoping in a couple of weeks that we'll have everything signed with them. And so based on it being early February, my hope is late February to early March to be out to bid. And we've got pretty much everything settled with the state. So it's really getting Safeway to sign off, and then we can move forward. That will put us in construction in April and hope to be done by, September, October, paving in the summertime, but kind of those finish up items, September, October timeframe.
And would you refresh us on what we're going to do?
So we're going to add northbound and southbound dual left turn lanes. So right now you have a single turn lane, so you'll get essentially a second one. And then currently you only have a dedicated right turn lane in the northbound direction. Essentially, you'll add those in the other 3 directions that don't have them. So you'll have a biggest intersection you can get without being a grade separated intersection. So dual left turn lanes in every direction, dedicated right turn lane in every direction, 2 through lanes in every direction.
Will the traffic light system be upgraded?
Yeah, so it will get a radar system for detection, and then it will have all the current bells and whistles.
And then moving towards the west, towards Fred Meyer, is there anything going to happen to that little piece? Wasn't that part of this as well?
Yeah, so there's 2 more projects. There's the 12th and First Street project, which is being worked on, as is the 15th. So at 15th, you'll get an additional southbound left turn lane. And essentially, that's accommodating the left turns that used to be at 12th Avenue. Now it's at 15th, and it's kind of overwhelming that. So you get the second southbound left turn lane. That's pushing us farther to the west. So we're acquiring the building that's right there out front to get that property.
From the church?
From the church. And then 12th and First will get expanded. So right now it's like, typically you have 12-foot lanes, and right now it's like 31 feet. So you have like an 11-foot and a 10-foot and a 10-foot lane. It's really tight, and quite frankly, it's just falling apart. That will get expanded to, the size that it's supposed to be. Plus, we'll tear everything out, so you'll have brand new asphalt surface, all of that, so that trucks can take it. The people that are using it, cars, will be able to drive on there without issues.
New sidewalks?
We'll keep the sidewalk on the south side. I don't believe we'll add a sidewalk to the north end because there is a path through there. Most of that's just a cost savings plus avoiding the wetlands that are on that property. So
And
Because
that-
there's a pathway on the south that doesn't make sense. to
And
do
that's
that.
23. That's
No, it
2023.
should,
That's this year as well.
Yeah.
So it's all going to be done by October. God willing, and Olympia too. Are there any other questions of Mr. Herzig and the street program?
Have we acquired the property from church yet?
no, so we're finishing up the design piece, and so we have to, there's a couple pieces. So because of the expansion on the north side, it's going to affect the south side a little bit. So we're still trying to tinker with that to see if we need any property from that parcel. Once we do that, we can go to the state and get them to buy off on it, because there's essentially, you've got a design phase and then a right-of-way phase. In order to actually purchase the property, we have to be in the right-of-way phase. We can't get there until we have a certain things done in the design phase. And so that's what we're working towards. So I'm hoping at most another couple of months on that, but that's what we're working towards now.
And then one more from me. Once this intersection is done, your projection for the future as far as this will last us until.
So based on the traffic studies, that should give us at least, we only look out 20 years. So it's supposed to go at least the 20 years. I can't say if that goes to 21 and then dies, or 50, but it goes the 20-year study period.
Wonderful. Okey-doke. I see no other questions. We'll move on to the administrative reports. Mrs. Urban.
We don't really have much. I did want to give council a heads up that we did have a meeting with our InterGov software people last week to get the code enforcement software going in the online portal. We were a little nervous about the timeline, but they actually fit us in. So they are going to kick that off early this month, and we're hoping to have a tentative testing go live by the beginning of March. So that is our schedule now. Fingers crossed, there's no major hiccups in the technology world, but that's the schedule to date. So
They never have any, so I
No,
don't know why
not at
there would be
all.
any problems. And that's the ballgame for.
That is it.
Yes,
Yep.
ma'am. Council communications, is there anyone that has anything? Seeing none, I do. Ms. Erdman and I and others, I'm sure, have spoken over the months with the previous council and as far as this council too, on the lack of code enforcement by the police and by the code enforcement folks. We divided that up at the end of last year between the two of them. When we talk about beautification, I see that as well as living in the neighborhoods. There have been some things this past month. When one goes to the portal and makes a complaint against one's neighbor, they have two choices. They can do it, they can put their name on there and state that, you know, my neighbor Bob is doing whatever, or they can do it anonymously. As I have spoken to folks, I get a lot of calls from friends of mine who have friends of theirs who say they don't want to put their name on because Bob is, 7 feet tall and has got a bad attitude. So, and they really don't want to do it anonymously either. So they think, well, we'll just call a friend of mine who knows Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Johnson will do it for us. And I have been. And I will say that I've been disappointed. This council has only one job, and that is to provide the money to the city to make it run. And honestly, I can say in my heart, we are not getting our money's worth. I'll use as an example, Chief, if you don't mind, sir, when there's a car in the right of way that has no plates. The RCW, I assume, states there's something to be done with that. Is there an RCW, or is there in the city something that states if there's a car in the street, public right of way, what happens to it?
Well, if it's parked, you can get a parking citation on it. If it's abandoned in municipal code and RCW allows for other remedies too. So yes, there are certain things.
The reason I asked that on 20th, southwest 20th, I guess. Yes. There's a Mercury been parked there for 3 weeks. It hasn't a tag on it, no trip tag, no temporary tag, no other tags. It's right there at the end of, I guess that's 11th, where 20th Skinny's down. It's parked right at the edge by our water, by one of our wells. Been there for 3 weeks. Cops are curious people, as far as I know. And as we drive by there, I'm concerned that they're not so curious as to figure out why a car sits there for 3 weeks with no tags. Also, if you continue around to Scotton, take the left there, go in front of Walmart, cross over by 7-Eleven, behind the school, there are cars over there with no tags. Been there for a week or two. I think someone's doing mechanics work, buying cars probably, and doing work out of their house over there, but still, we have cars with no tags. Also, there are in some neighborhoods, there's, as an example, there's a Volkswagen. You can tell that it's been there a long time because the moss has grown underneath it. Its plate expired 18 months ago and has flat tires. I don't understand it. There are trailers in this city over behind, in her neighborhood, in Mr. Rozier's neighborhood, facing the wrong way, work trailers with a 5-year expired Oregon plate on it. I don't get it. I'd like for you to ask the folks to kind of see if we can do something to that, if you don't mind. And then, Mr. Crummett, in your case, sir, there are trailers set up around town and boats in streets. One's been there for at least 18 months. I don't know how it's missed. It's been called in, but it's still missed. In my neighborhood, there was one of my neighbors, he's moved now, but he had a trailer there for going on 2 years. I don't know how it's missed. If I can see it, I don't know how the city misses it. Ms. Erdman and I, in a construction type zone, some neighbor had fenced off a portion of the dead-end street. I called it in. Ms. Erdman took care of it, called whomever, and they squared it away. It's across from houses being built. So I know we have our building inspectors cruising through that neighborhood because they can't be building houses without us going by and looking at them. There are basketball goals with rocks and tires on them. There are trailers parked in the street. There are RV covers with gutters draining onto other people's property. We can see them. I'm a little disappointed, and Ms. Erdman and I have spoken about this. This is nothing new for her. We ain't getting what we paid for. I understand it's a complaint system, and I asked Ms. Erdman to send me all the complaints that have been sent, all of us actually, for the last 35 days roughly, from the 1st of January until last Friday. Today, as I'm going through my neighborhood, I noticed that the police had come through and put some tickets on some cars that had been told to be moved months ago, and were moved months ago. They moved them back. There are dumpsters in the street, personal dumpsters, not big commercial dumpsters. I don't think we allow that. There are pods. How long do pods have to, according to the code, to sit in the driveway?
Typically 30 days, unless there's an extension given.
Shipping containers, are they allowed at all? Overseas shipping containers?
We would allow those if they met building code or in the rear of the property?
This is in the front yard. I get the calls because no one wants to put their name on that. I don't mind putting my name on it. But I'm asking you, please, on behalf of us, since we live here, to the folks that work for us, if they see something, the police have told us over the years, the government has told us over the years, if you see something, say something. I'm asking you, if you see it, take care of it, please. That's all I'm asking. And Ms. Walters, I see you have rung in. What may we do for you?
I just want to add something onto that. So on New Year's Eve, my son and I went down to Southwest First Avenue to shoot off some fireworks. And a semi truck pulled in like it was going to park there. He ended up, because there was so much firework debris that we had left sitting there, he ended up parking and coming in to speak to me. And he was told that the Best Western told him that he could park there overnight. So that may be an education piece that we need to pass along to the Best Western, that they can't park there. But I just wanted to add on, I guess, to what you had to say. Thank you.
And I would ask the six of us, if there's something in your neighborhood that you see, go to the portal and let's turn it in. And let's try to clean up the neighborhoods that we all live in, and we'll just do better by it. Yes, sir, Mr. McCoy, and we'll finish with you, sir.
Well, that's ominous. What should be the expectation for that new portal if somebody marks, I would like to be contacted on the result of this issue, be it from either the police or code? What should be the expectation?
So on the new portal, we haven't built that out yet, but we were talking about you would be contacted within 24 hours. That will be all listed on the formats. The existing ones are just through the website now, so it doesn't actually go into a software system, but it sends an email out to designated people depending on what form you pick. And it now has the option to be anonymous, and it does now ask if you would like to be contacted. And if you click that, then once we've made contact with the property owners or the vehicle owner, then we will contact you on what the outcome was. But there is also a button. A lot of people have requested not to be contacted. So
I understand, but what should be the expectation? So if I send something in on today, the 7th, what should be the expectation with the current system on being contacted on average?
on average, I would say hopefully within 48 hours. Now, I'm hoping that may not be the case right now because we just divided out the traffic and the code enforcement sides into police and code. There was quite a backlog of items that code enforcement was getting to. And then on the police side, they're running shifts and it's not their first priority. I mean, if they get a parking violation, their calls are their first priority.
Certainly.
So it may be to the next shift before it gets handled. That's the hard part, I think, and that's what we're going to continue to struggle with, is we have shifted those parking violations to PD, but it's not their priority work.
Understand. So maybe what might be helpful, at least to me, against it, is where we are on that backlog, perhaps. If the council could know, okay,
Yeah.
code is working November 5th, because we had such a backlog, that would be very informative to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, and that concludes us this evening right at 8 o'clock. The next meeting will be Tuesday, since February 17th is a holiday. Tuesday, February 18th, meeting starting at 7. Do we not have a study session? I thought we did.
We do, I believe.
Actually, we'll start then at 6.
Yeah.
The 18th, Tuesday, the 18th.
President's Day.
President's Day is the 17th of February.
And that's not correct. That's.
Oh, I'm just reading what you gave me.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
the
that's
20
right. It wouldn't be because today's the
It's the
7th.
22nd of February.
Oh, my.
You're gonna be here by yourself.
Oh, my. Oh, well. What day is it?
It's Tuesday, February 22nd.
Good job.
I know when I saw that, I'm like, that doesn't look great.
Well, then I'll see you on the 22nd. Or if you want to come here on the 18th, that'll be fine too.